interest rates in the United States, they're still relatively average. They're only elevated if you compare to the recent past. What are your predictions for the economy for this upcoming year? Should I be concerned about anything in particular? Thanks for the question, Nate. And I would say yes, you should be concerned about being overly concerned about the economy. We're going to get into that.
Can we just put that on rewind and say that again?
Yes.
Yeah.
You should be concerned about being overly concerned about the economy. It is about your economy, not the economy. Now, it's not that the economy doesn't matter, but when I read this question, my first reaction is, where's our crystal ball?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we don't know.
I'll tell you, everybody's crystal ball is broken. It always has been, and it always will be. We like to say around here, even a broken clock is right twice a day.
Right.
So yes, there are people who've gotten some predictions right, but let's measure it against all the other ones that they didn't get right.
Yep.
And we want to be sure that our clients, our investors are ready regardless of what the economy brings, regardless of what your particular investments do in terms of performance. You have to be prepared regardless. So we don't want to lean too far into the economy's going to be great, the economy's going to be horrible. Be ready regardless.
Yeah, I think a great case in point, and we've brought it up on this show before, but if you go back to 2021 when inflation started to really ratchet up towards the back end of the year, and then interest rates soon followed, the Fed hiking interest rates, the predictions became pretty dire from America's leading economists. It was a very high percentage, almost 9 out of 10, I would say, that were saying a recession was imminent by 2022. The stock market responded to those predictions and went down in 2022. However, we did not officially have a recession. Those cries for a recession kept coming in 2022 and even into 2023. They have subsided now, and to this date, we didn't have that recession. So those predictions were wrong.
Yeah. So, Scott, let's look at some of the data that we have currently on where we are with the economy. Consumer spending is healthy. That's always a good thing. I don't know about when you did Christmas shopping, but when I did Christmas shopping, I was not in the store alone. Yeah. There were quite a few people out doing all of that. So consumer spending is healthy. Unemployment rate is low, and corporations are profitable. And those are all good signs for where we are currently.
Yeah, the unemployment rate has ticked up slightly, but it is still historically very low. Hard to have a recession with an unemployment rate as low as we have. On the other side, even though the inflation rate has gotten a lot closer to the Fed's preferred 2% annual target, it is the cumulative effect of inflation that has certainly continued to hurt many middle-class, working-class Americans. Interest rates are still elevated, but they are starting to come down. And compared to the overall long-term interest rates in the United States, they're still relatively average. They're only elevated if you compare to the recent past. So I think the overall status of the economy is good. We don't see a recession coming in the immediate future, but it doesn't mean something doesn't happen to cause it. There's always a black swan event that could potentially be out there. There is legislative risk coming, or potentially legislative changes coming with a new presidency. Donald Trump will take office later this month, or be inaugurated later this month. He, of course, has talked a lot about tariffs, right? And I think that's depending on how you look at that, and maybe where your political persuasions are, depends on what you think about that. But I did want to kind of throw this in there. We had some info from a recent LPL research blog that I thought was great because it is backed by data, right? A lot of this can be pushed by feelings. Tariffs are good or tariffs are bad. The reality, though, a tariff, let's define what it is. First of all, it is a tax on the customs value of an imported product. So there's a lot of debate over there from the political minds and from the economic minds of what would tariffs do? Well, the reality is tariffs are already in place. That's the one thing that we need to point out. During Trump's first presidency, he put into force a lot of tariffs. He did grant exclusions for over 2,200 products included in those tariffs, though. And President Biden kept most of them. And he also put additional tariffs in place as recently as May of 2024. So there are still tariffs in place. I know that President-elect Donald Trump is expected to increase that. So what would it do? There is this worry that it would put some inflation pressure on consumer prices because it would get passed along. But the reality is that we can look at the data, and really is pretty much what LPL research calls a more neutral effect on the economy, because if you look at the tariffs imposed in early 2018, it impacted producer prices more than consumer prices. So basically, in essence, wholesalers did not pass along fully the cost of importing due to tariffs. So that is some good news that it might potentially not be an inflationary risk. But I know that's something that, remains to be seen on how all the details of that work out. But I did want to throw that out there because I know that's something that people are concerned about. But the so what here is we return to Nate's question, your predictions about the economy. We can talk about that. And I think it's important to talk about it. I think it's important to know where things stand and potentially make small tactical moves inside of your investment portfolios based on where we think the economy is headed. But to go all in on those beliefs or go all out on those beliefs is really wrong-headed. It is about, as we mentioned earlier, your economy, not the economy.
Yeah, and I think that's where you've got to look at what choices can you make to be sure that you're putting yourself in a situation where if we do have, more inflation, you have higher cost of living, then what do you do about it? So I was talking, Scott, with a friend of mine recently, and he's kind of moving forward financially more so than what he's been able to in the past, and he was telling me that by getting some of these things paid off that have just been like an albatross around his neck for so long, at this point when he gets those paid off, he's going to have $700 a month freed up that he has had obligated to pay those debts in the past. And when you think about $700 now, if gas goes up, if milk goes up, all of these things that you have to consume on a regular basis, if those items go up, he has more than enough extra left in his cash flow each month now compared to what he has had in the past, and all because he got really focused on eliminating some debt. So if you think through, in your situation, Nate, what can you do? Can you eliminate some debt? Can you raise your income? Are you able to put yourself in a position to add to your retirement savings, to maybe even accelerate that timeline for retirement, or at least give yourself more income for retirement? So lots of things that I think are personal to you, and we don't know the details about your situation, about where you need to focus right now, but take the opportunity to think about what can I do to move myself forward in 2025.
It's like at the top of the show when we said, determine your year of financial independence. When do you want it to be, Nate? And then create a plan through contributions and investments to get your asset level where it needs to be to provide you the monthly income you want and need in retirement. The psychological effect can be really the most damaging piece to this if you let your concerns about what might happen in the economy overshadow where you are on your journey to financial independence. When we say it's about your economy, not the economy, it's another way from an investment perspective of saying control what you can control. And I would throw in there to wrap up, watch less news, because that can affect you psychologically and get you into apocalyptic thinking that can really damage your long-term financial goals.